What's up everybody, it's the Strong Boys 19 here, and for my type of video today I'm going to be doing a double album review on two grindcore albums from my favourite grindcore band of all time, Napalm Death. So, since I added the first two albums from the band on my albums to be 10 out of 10 list, I thought I'd do the album reviews on both of them for this whole video. So, let's just start it off with their first album. So Scum has always been a highly anticipated and influential metal album, and it was made in 1987, and like I said on my previous video, that this is the very first grindcore album ever made in existence. And while they're making the album, there has been some different band lineup changes throughout making the album. The first half of the album has Nick on vocals and bass guitar, Justin on guitar and vocals, and Mick on the drums. And for the second half of the album, it has Lee Dorian on vocals, Jim on bass, Bill Steer, and Mick still on the drums. So, yeah, the label for this album is Earache Records, and the whole album is 33 minutes long. So, when you're going to experience this whole album, you can really describe a lot of things on this album. This album is really raw, and it is really aggressive all the way through from start to finish. And grindcore itself has been a great genre, and its subgenres are hardcore punk and extreme metal and others. So Napalm Death wants to make their music really heavy with some pieces of some of the subgenres all together. This album will completely blow your mind away if you are a metalhead, and Napalm Death always wants to make music really aggressive with a lot of grindcore into the table. And from their future albums, their music has some bits and pieces of death metal, but the band still considered itself as their main genre, which is obviously grindcore. So, the whole album is just brutality all the way. The vocals on this album are really those types of vocals that makes you want to shout the lyrics out with your really loud vocals. If you're like shouting right in front of the microphone, the drums sounded like they were bashed really hard, and the guitar work has been really good as well, and some of the riffs on the album has some kind of punky type of riffs, and the bass guitar work is just like the guitar work in every way. So I highly recommend this album, and there's not much I could say about it, but it's just an instant classic, and we will never forget the world's shortest song from the 12th track on this album, You Suffer, which lasted over half of a second long. So no one can ever beat that record. I know Napalm Death has been popular from that track and also others. Scum is a fantastic album, and it's just an album that will never go out of your style if you just keep listening to a lot of metal. So this is definitely one of my favourite albums of all time, and definitely check it out if you haven't yet. So that's basically all I've got to say about Scum. So let's move on to their second album, From Enslavement to Obliteration. This album, to me, like I said in my other video, is that this is my favourite grindcore album of all time. And this was made a year after Scum, 1988. And Earache Records is still the label. And from what can I hear by all of these tracks on this album, I think this album is a little bit heavier than Scum. But other than that, this whole album is just like Scum in every way. Just awesome, brutality from beginning to end. And Lee is still the vocalist in the band, and there has been a change of the bass guitar. The bass guitarist for this album is Shane, and he was with the band by making this album. The vocals are really raw as well, really low growls and some high screams, but not like proper death metal screams like George Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse. It isn't like that. It's just some really high but pretty weak screams. But when you scream and do some growls, they don't have to be really perfect. It's just the way Lee records his vocals with his own type of technique of his growls and screams in the album. The guitar work is just basically like the first album, with a lot of different riffs of hardcore punk and a lot of metal elements in it. The drums are even more aggressive in this album. The bass guitar work is just like the guitar work. And it's just a really cool album, and I just really love it. And the original version is 29 minutes long, and there's been another version. The songs from the Curse EP are added in this album. I just really enjoyed this album to death, and it's just a classic. It's just like Scum for a lot of reasons. So there is nothing much I could say about these two albums, but definitely check out From Enslavement to Obliteration, and it will just completely blow your mind away. And there has been a lot of elements on this album that's just, you know, really the same, with a lot of the heavy guitar riffs and the low growls and screams and the drumming blast beats with the cymbals being hit a lot of times. And it's just really cool that Napalm Death is still like that today. I love From Enslavement to Obliteration, and the whole experience of the album to me is just really aggressive and even more angry than Scum, in my opinion. So that's all I've got to say about From Enslavement to Obliteration, and that's my whole video of these double album reviews. The album ratings for these two albums are a really big 5 out of 5 star rating. Definitely check them out, and I highly recommend them. That's all I've got to say about these albums, and thanks for watching, and I'll keep you posted for different videos really soon. And keep it metal, guys.